L'chaim, l'chaim. So tonight is Motzei Shabbos Mevorchim Ellul. The Rebbe says in Asicha that being that Ellul is the Ma'asif L'chol HaMachanos, just like when the Yidden went in the Midbar, so Shevet Dan were the ones who traveled in the back, and anything that anyone else lost, Shevet Dan gathered and brought it back to them. And the Rebbe says it's the same thing with the month of Ellul, being that it's the 12th month of the year. So the Shabbos that blesses the month of Ellul is the one that if anything was lacking in any of the other Shabbos Mevorchims, which Shabbos Mevorchim gives the bracha for all the entire month. So if anything was lacking in any of the other 11 Shabbos Mevorchims, which includes also the Shabbos that blessed Tishrei, meaning the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. If anything was lacking in any of them, so we can be mashlim, we can complete it now in the month of El, in the Shabbos Mevorchim of El. So now it's Motzei Shabbos, which the Rebbe clearly says you can have the Fabrengens also on Motzei Shabbos Mevorchim. So in order to further complete whatever may be lacking, or even if it's not lacking, but just to bring it to the fullest possible completion. So let's have a little bit of a Fabrengen now. I'll start with an interesting vort that I heard from one of the shluchim here. There's 3 tkufas of 40 days. The first 40 days, Moshe Rabbeinu came after Matan Torah. On the 7th day of Sivan, Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain and went to get the Torah from Hashem. He came down at the end of 40 days, which is the 17th of Tammuz. He saw that they made a golden calf and he broke the luchas. Then there were 40 days in between where it's different opinions. Was Moshe Rabbeinu actually on the mountain then or not on the mountain then? But regardless, the idea is it was 40 days from the 18th of Tammuz until the 29th of Av. During that time, those 40 days, what happened in the end? Nothing. Then Rosh Chodesh Ellul, Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain again for 40 days. The end of the 40 days is Yom Kippur, where Hashem says, Salachti kidvarecha. Hashem says, I've forgiven them for the sin of the Egel. What happened in between? What was the second 40 days, the second era of 40 days, which seemingly didn't resolve anything? And so he told a story, and he said, here, this story from the Rebbe by Fabrengen. The Rebbe told this story on various occasions. When the Rebbe Rashab first became Rebbe, we know that the Rebbe Rashab had an older brother, the Razor of Zalman Aaron. The Razor refused to accept, to take on the role of Rebbe, and so it went to his younger brother, the Rebbe Rashab. There was one chassid, he needed something, I'm not sure what it was a bracha for something, and so he came to the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab said, I can't help you. And this chassid was heartbroken, not just heartbroken, he was shattered. This was his last hope. The Rebbe is going to daven for him, the Rebbe will intercede on his behalf on high, and here the Rebbe says, I can't help you. What's going to be now? And so he went out. He was standing in the hall. And he was crying, but he was not just crying. He was completely broken. The Razah passed by and he sees this chassid is shattered and he asked him, what's the issue? And so he told him, I went into the Rebbe and I asked for a bracha. And he said, he can't help me. So Razah went, knocked on the door of the Rebbe Rashab and went inside. And he said to the Rebbe Rashab, what kind of business is this? You are a Rebbe, you have to help Jews. What is it that you can't help him? Look, this person is shattered. And so the Rebbe Rashab said, call him in. He called in the Jew, and the Rebbe Rashab gave him a bracha, and of course it happened. So the Rebbe told this story, and the Rebbe asked the question, Iman Avshach, if he could help him, then why did he not help him first in the beginning? And if he couldn't help him, what changed? And the Rebbe explained a very amazing point. When a person goes to a Rebbe thinking that he's going to do it for me, it won't work. When a person realizes that I have to break myself, I have to reach an intense bittul, to the extent that I know that the only one that can help is the Eibishter himself, that's when a Rebbe can help. However, the truth is, that idea is the concept of the month of Ellul, Ani L'Daidi. Ellul means we decide I am going to connect to Hashem through the realization that Ani, the I, is the Maida Ani Lefanecha that comes the first thing in the morning. The Rebbe says in a Maimer, an amazing point, Ellul Maimer. And the Rebbe says that before davening, the achana for davening, the preparation that a person has before davening, besides that there's the Moida'ani. Moida'ani is the complete subservience to Hashem. And then after Birchas HaShachar, once a person said brachas and he now has the different aspects and he brings godliness, he draws godliness into each of those aspects, it's at that time that the person then has the power to daven and say Haidul Hashem, where his subservience is in a way where he recognizes and he understands the difference between Hashem and Shmai. But the Rebbe says an amazing point, that the achana before davening, the preparation for davening is shichichi amechu veisavich. When a Jew goes to daven to the Eibishter, the preparation before davening is not me, it's forget yourself. Shichichi amechu veisavich. Forget who I am, forget my nation, forget my father's home, forget everything, nothing exists. My existence isn't there, and that's the way I can come to the Eibishter. And yet, the Shabbos that blesses the month of Ellul, we read, Re'ei anoichi noisin lifneichem ayem bracha. Hashem says, I am giving you a blessing, I am giving you power, I'm giving you strength. If Ellul is something that has to come from myself, it has to come from within, from the Ani. So why is the Shabbos that blesses the month of Ellul start with Re'ei? And so perhaps to understand that, there's another story that I heard lately. It's an old story. It was in the Yuds, in the 50s, that the Rebbe sent Rabbi Hirschel Chitrik to be a shliach in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And he went there on shlichus, and apparently he went for whatever reason to New York. And in the meantime, in Rio de Janeiro, there was a Jew who was sort of the president. Anything that needed to be done, he was the one who did it. He was a person who was a very warm-hearted person who liked to help people and do whatever it is. And the family was very well-to-do. And he was well-respected in the community as the person who everyone knew this is the one that everything in the community, he's the one that's in charge of, sort of like the president of the community. And in the meantime, it wasn't just in the Jewish community, but lahavdil in the non-Jewish community as well. Everyone recognized him, everyone knew him as a respectable figure in the business world, etc. And so one day his wife went to travel to New York. And in that time, there wasn't direct flights from Brazil to New York. So you had to travel through Miami. So she comes to the airport, and a woman approaches her. And it seemed to her, or perhaps it was, a Jewish woman. She didn't know who it was, but she asked her, where are you traveling? She said, I'm traveling to Miami. She said, oh, can you please do me a favor? I have a tiny little package that has to be brought to Miami. Can you please bring it for me? She was very, perhaps not really so much naive, but more just kind-hearted and willing to help and always looking to help another that needs help. He said, sure, but who am I going to bring it to? He said, don't worry. They'll be waiting for you in the airport and they'll have a sign with your name. He said, make sure that they have a sign because otherwise I'm not going to know where to bring the package. For sure, they'll be waiting in the airport and they'll have a clear sign with your name. Okay, she takes the package and it seems the police were tipped off and they checked everyone's luggage. And when they came to this woman, they asked her, can we check your luggage? Sure. They came to this bag. Can we check this bag? Sure. And they checked the bag. They opened it. They see there's a false bottom. And they open it up and it's filled with diamonds. Hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars worth of diamonds. And the police turned to her, you're smuggling diamonds. She says, no, it's not mine. Yeah, right. That's what they all say. Whose is it then if it's not yours? She says, someone came over to me and asked me to bring the package. Who asked you to bring the package? I don't know. What do you mean? You take a package for a random person you don't know who it is? Yeah, she came. She asked me a favor. I'm bringing the package. They said, so where are you supposed to deliver it to? She said, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? So they're supposed to be waiting for me with signs. So the police said, come, let's go into the arrival hall. And let's see if there's anyone waiting with a sign. They go into the arrival hall and either they were there or they weren't there beforehand. But when they saw the police, they obviously weren't there. And that's it. So there's no questions. The whole story looks extremely fishy. They arrested her. And there's supposed to be the arraignment a few weeks later in Miami. And in the meantime, they have her in jail. And they say this could be at least 10 years prison. The word gets back over there in Brazil. And the man is totally shattered. He has kids. And his wife's going to be in jail 10 years, and he tries, and he goes, and he tries every type of connection possible, and nothing helps. And not only that, the name of the family, the story went far and wide. It was in the headlines in newspapers in Brazil. The Jewish community knew it, the non-Jewish community knew it, everyone heard about it, and their family's name was shot. To the extent that the husband's brother, the brother-in-law, he actually dealt in diamonds. So obviously the biggest suspicion fell on him. He's the one probably who arranged this whole smuggling story. His business overnight went down the drain. So the brother-in-law, his business went down the drain, he decides I have to somehow make a parnasa. So he travels to New York and he figures he'll try and look for business opportunities. Meantime, in New York, he meets the shliach, Rabbi Chitrik. Rabbi Chitrik sees him and he sees that this man is totally oismensch. But not only that, he's broken. And he asks him what happened. So he tells him the story and he's crying and he tells him the story. And he says, we tried everything. We tried all the possible connections, and nothing's helping. So the shliach says to him, I don't understand. You're in New York. Why don't you arrange a yechidus with the Lubavitcher Rebbe? This was in the 50s, in the Yutz. He says, arrange a yechidus with the Lubavitcher Rebbe and ask him for a bracha. He says, leave me alone. We're Litvish. I learned in Mir Yeshiva. I don't believe in Rebbes. We don't do that. He says, what do you mean you don't believe in Rebbes? I mean, this is something you tried everything, and here I'm telling you, this is what's going to help you. Anyway, he pushed him. Finally, he let him. He arranged for him a yechidus for a week later. He goes into Yechidus by the Rebbe, and he tells the story. He breaks down in tears. And the Rebbe looks at him and says one line, go travel to Miami. Comes out of Yechidus, and he goes back to Rabbi Chitrik. He says, I told you, what are you getting me mixed up with these things? What kind of nonsense is when I'm going to travel to Miami? I don't know anyone in Miami. I have no connections in Miami. He didn't even tell me what to do in Miami. What am I supposed to do in Miami? Rabbi Chitrik tells him, are you crazy? The Rebbe told you travel to Miami, you have to travel to Miami. And he's fighting and he's arguing, but Rabbi Chitrik pulls him to the airport. They buy a ticket. He buys him a ticket and he sends him off to Miami. Comes off to Miami. He had a hotel over there. And he arrives on Friday afternoon. He settles in the hotel and he looks for a shul nearby. He comes into shul. It's early. Nobody's there yet. It's late afternoon, but it's still before mincha time. And he starts thinking about his situation and about his family situation and his sister-in-law and his brother in Brazil, and he breaks down crying bitter tears. People in the meantime start coming for Mincha, for Ma'ariv, and he's crying. Comes after Ma'ariv, people go by, they say good Shabbos to him, and that's it. One person stays in the end, and he comes up to me, he says, tell me, what's your problem? Maybe I can help you. You look like you're shattered. He says, you can't help me, please leave me alone. He says, tell me what's your worry, what's your issue. Anyway, finally he convinces him, and again with bitter tears he tells him the whole story. He tells him about the family. It was an amazing family, and his sister-in-law was just a kind person, and she likes to do good, and she got pulled in, it seems, by some smuggling ring or whatever. The guy says to him, he looks at him, he says, is by any chance the arraignment is supposed to be on this coming Tuesday? He says, yeah. He says, is it in this courthouse? He says, yeah. He says, you have nothing to worry about. He says, I'm the judge, and I heard you speak, and you didn't know who I am, and the way you're talking, I can see that you're telling the truth. You have nothing to worry about. He couldn't believe his ears, and he didn't even know is this true or not, but he came to the courthouse on Tuesday, and sure enough, this guy's the judge. And the guy gets up after all the prosecutors, the state prosecutor and all the thing, and he gets up and he says, new evidence has come to light. She is fully innocent. And he lets her go immediately. She immediately gets a ticket back to Brazil because she doesn't want to have anything more to do with this country. She goes back to Brazil, and they made a big party, and everyone in the city hears about it, the Jews, the non-Jews, and everyone hears this great story that happened. In the meantime, Rabbi Chitrik, still in New York, he goes into Chiddush by the Rebbe, and he says to the Rebbe that the whole city is talking about the miracle of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe says that's not the miracle. The miracle is that he listened and he did what he was told to do. And that, in essence, is the idea that we're given the koyach. The Rebbe gives us the strength. The Rebbe gives us the power. The Rebbe davens for us. The Rebbe gives us all the koyches that we need. But doing it, listening, doing what we're told, that's something which only we can do. The Eibishter himself gives us the greatest possible blessings. And they're all there. They're there ready for us to tap into it. We just have to listen and do what the Rebbe tells us so that we can tap into those brachas. And that's what we do now as we come to the month of Ellul. Tap in and listen and do what we're told. Because when we do what we're told, we will actually accomplish what has to be accomplished. And we'll bring a ksiva v'achsima teva. Every single person in everything that they need. And now as we come into the month of Ellul already, now the Eibishter will give all the brachas because the king is in the field. He's here, he's waiting for us, he's near us. And he's waiting for me to go and turn to him and speak to him. And he's waiting for me to give him my request. That limser lo yesbakashayseim. The Malach is mekabel is kulam b'sever panim yafis. He's accepting us with a happy face, and he's showing us a smiling face, and he's mekabel bakashayseim. The Rebbe adds this part to the mashal. He receives and accepts our requests, and he's memale bakashayseim, and he fulfills our requests. And specifically the greatest request that we have, but that the Rebbe told us we have to do it. But the Rebbe gives us every single power possible, every strength possible that we should do it, but the actual doing it has to be done by us, and that we should turn to Hashem and say, Avinu Malkeinu. It's already been 11 months of Tafshin Pei Dalet, 11 months, which unfortunately weren't all the greatest months, and it was filled with, unfortunately, all types of issues that come from the Galus. Rachim Aleinu, have mercy and pity on us, and send us immediately before Rosh Chodesh Ellul, before we see the king in the field. Send us the revelation of Mashiach, so that we can see with our physical eyes the king in the field, and he takes us all together to Eretz HaKodesh, to Yerushalayim HaKodesh, to the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi VaMeshulash immediately. L'chaim, l'chaim, it should be again aksiva v'achsima teva. To each and every person, we should all have all the brachas b'teva, nira v'nigla, and most importantly, the most important thing, the Isgalus of Mashiach, immediately now. A good tevach.